I'm ready to go back to the tuning phase of these two platforms based on new information that I've found in the past couple of weeks. An Andy Piper video just really opened up notch filtering and tuning to me. So I'm going to go back to notch filter setup on both of these and move forward. Let me show you that information. Last week when I started recovering from pneumonia, I watched Andy Piper's ArduCopter 6-inch race build series, which he, let's see here, when video 10, video 4, video 1. He just started posting this 8 days ago. I had used his videos on a 7-inch to do the Chimera 7 and his videos on a 5-inch to do my little 5-inch. I did not follow them directly because I was using slightly different hardware from the hardware he was using in his 7-inch build and 5-inch build. But when I got down to the notch filtering part, I did use some of his setup directly on the 7-inch for the notch filters, which I was kind of a layman at back then. Also, I've recently watched a video on Josh Bardwell's first dip into ArduCopter, and he did the same thing I did with the flame wheel a year or so back. He built it up, didn't seem to read all the instructions, especially the instructions on first flights and stuff. If you watch his video on that, you'll see he popped that platform up. It didn't have good PIDs because it hadn't been auto-tuned, and it looks to me like it had so much vibration in the frame because he didn't go through the notch filtering part of the build that the accelerometers and gyros were being bumped around so much it was just unstable as all get out. Exactly like the flame wheel for me a year ago when I built it up just from basically going down the list inside ArduCopter and doing everything needed to be done there without reading the documentation at the time. I didn't find out about notch filters till much later when one of my subscribers was trying to build up a little 5-inch, sent me his parameter list, and I didn't understand the notch filter part of it. That's what made me buy the little 5-inch. No, actually it was the 7-inch, wasn't it? That's what made me buy the 7-inch and build it up so I could help him. And then after I got the 7-inch built up, he switched over to a 5-inch. So that's why I bought the 5-inch. I frequently get pushed around by people's questions here. That's why I bought the VTOL airplane. That's why I buy a lot of things and kind of jump from topic to topic, is because people are asking me questions and I can't answer them well unless I have the hardware and play with it myself. I don't mind that at all. I've got 2 great quads and a nice VTOL airplane out of the deal recently, and all sorts of other stuff going on. So I think Bardwell should do exactly what I'm going to do with the 2 quads and go back to the tuning and first flight information of ArduCopter, and perhaps watch these videos of the 6-inch build. You can see here I kind of watched video 1, but I didn't watch 2, 3, 4, 5. I did watch the BL Heli 32 one, just for information for me, but initial firmware load of ArduCopter I didn't watch. Electronics and wiring, I didn't really watch. Final assembly, I didn't watch. Initial configuration, I watched a little bit of it. You can see here by the red line. But I got deeply into these videos on the first flight, the flight noise analysis. Didn't really pay much attention to the walks. Now configuration, I've got that down. But you see, I really watched second flight, frame resonance and auto tune, and the post auto tune review, mag fit, FPV configuration. These are some pretty long videos, but while I was recovering from pneumonia, I did watch these. I highly recommend these videos for tuning. Notch filtering, I would recommend video 11, 12, 14, and 15 in no uncertain terms. And what's going on here, he revealed, again, you can see this particular video is a hour and 15 minutes. But recovering from pneumonia, I started watching these. And what he's doing, he's using this information from, God, I couldn't pronounce that name. I hate it. And see, this information is from December 2023. And it's methodical tuning with ArduCopter 4.4.x. I got 4.3 on those two frames over there, so I'm going to have to upgrade to the current version before I start doing this. But if you work down through this documentation, and I'll put a link to it in the description, it's got a lot of good information, getting the hardware right, initial configuration. But the stuff that really shines in this is the harmonic notch data collection, the mag fit, which is a utility to help you get your compass really well tuned. Third and fourth flight, evaluating the tune, then doing the auto tune flights, which is totally different. This information is so different from the documentation, it isn't even funny. In their auto tune flights here, they have you tune your pitch and roll, your yaw, and then after the yaw is tuned, come back and do the pitch and roll again. And I can kind of see their point there. If the yaw is slightly off while it's doing pitch and roll, and yaw's kind of drifting around a little bit or jerking a little bit and isn't well tuned, then from pitch to pitch during the pitch tuning or roll to roll during the roll tuning, the difference in yaw can affect that data. But they go on here evaluating the flight, wind speed estimations, baro compensation flights. This stuff wasn't as important to me as the harmonic notch data, mag fit, and the tuning flights. So I'm going to use this information to go back through those on those two platforms. Now they're talking about, for notch filtering here, and these are some of the developers for ArduCopter, so I do put a lot of stock in their information, and I'm going to follow it to retune these two platforms. You can see here they're talking about motor thrust hover, which isn't as important to me, but the harmonic notch is. And what they're saying here about notch filtering, if I can find it, is they're using the BL Heli RPM, I believe. Now, in this build, they're using an H7 flight controller, so the flight controller does have enough memory, and it does have enough CPU speed that you could use FFT, but they don't. This is advanced tuning by the developers. I thought if I used FFT that if the frequency due to changes in props, if they got dinged a little bit, that the FFT being dynamic, something change in the frame of some sort would move the resonant frequency of the frame, and the FFT would follow that. But that's just a supposition of mine, and you can see right here they're using mode 3 instead of mode 4, ESC telemetry. Their developers, he's using an H743, the person who wrote this information. Andy was using what was he using on this? I think he was using it. Let's see here if it shows us real quick here. Yeah, see, he's using an H743 Slim, which I think is what I used on the 7-inch, and used an H743 Mini on the 5-inch. Yikes! Gonna get gigged there. So both of them have an H7 flight controller. According to the ArduCopter documentation, they're capable of FFT type notch filtering, but they're not using it for some reason. It might be just like I'm not yet using Edge TX on my radios. I'm still using Open TX because I'm more comfortable with it. I don't know why they haven't moved up to FFT when they're using H7 processors, both of them, but neither one of them have. They don't tell me. So I'm going to drop back and quit using the mode 4 FFT and start using ESC telemetry. That's why I'm going to back all the way up to retuning these two platforms, starting with notch filtering. And I'm going to go through this information and retune them both. And I think I will end up with quads that are much better. I hope. So only in the past 8 days has Andy put out his information on this, and you've got the videos to follow as he does his first flight, his second flight, and it reviews his post-auto tuning flight. They're really good. It's better described than it's ever been before notch filtering, and why and how and when and everything than there's ever been. It's much better than the ArduCopter documentation itself, and this document is just eons above anything I've ever seen in the ArduCopter documentation. Now then, I've also learned during this time that I've changed my opinion about ArduCopter. ArduCopter is hard. I used to think it wasn't that bad until I got into this notch filtering stuff 6-8 months ago. I'm getting more comfortable with it, so it's becoming easy for me again. But boy, like Bardwell's first dive into that ArduCopter he built up and didn't do any of this first flight stuff or notch filtering. He popped up a platform that was so wobbly and didn't respond well, just like my flame wheel did when I did the same thing as him a year or so ago. I'm also going to go back and redo the motors and ESCs on the flame wheel, and then I'm going to come back and use this information to do a proper tuning on the flame wheel. And I think I'm going to have a flame wheel that flies just as good as it used to years ago, and I'm going to still be in love with my flame wheel. I just really got lots of flights on that flame wheel. The last year, boy, there was one time I popped it up at the field with a friend of mine, and it got 6 or 8 feet in the air and flipped upside down, hit the ground, and broke an arm. It was so, in my humble opinion, vibrations were just killing it. Now I know, based on this information, working through the notch filtering in the past year, and this new information in this documentation and in Andy's 6-inch build, the description of what's going on in these 3 videos is just so much better. Combined with this document, I think it won't go back to being easy for somebody going into ArduCopter for the first time. It's always going to be a little hard for the notch filtering in first flights. But after you've done 2 or 3 of them, it'll become easy again. That's my opinion. I don't know if there's any notch filtering or vibration filtering in iNav or Betaflight. I'd like to find out after I get all my Ardu stuff done, especially for the Ardu planes, which I haven't got deep into yet, which is important to me. I'll be looking at all this in Betaflight and iNav. But I'm still just deeply in love with Ardu. Ardu Rover, Ardu Plane, they're pretty easy. I don't even think there's notch filtering in the Ardu Plane. I'm going to go back and look for sure, but I don't think that's done in Ardu Plane. So Ardu Plane and Ardu Rover are still very easy. Ardu Sub, Ardu Boat. So I'm just really deeply in love with the Ardu period. It is harder. I like the challenge. I've pretty much conquered the challenge over the years. Had a little setback with notch filtering, but now I'm getting notch filtering down pretty good. And I think when I work back through this, as this gentleman's documentation says, and Andy Piper's videos say in his 6-inch build, I think I'm going to have that down. I wished I could get in touch with Josh Bardwell in some fashion and point him towards this information for his ArduCopter build, but basically I don't really. I guess if he has a Discord server it might be possible, but unless you do one of his, I forget what he calls them, where he answers questions where people pay him $10 or $20 a pop for questions, you don't get to communicate with him much. He's just across the mountain here in Knoxville. I guess I could go to a race or something and walk up to him physically and try to talk to him for a few minutes, but I'm not going to ambush somebody like that. So I really wanted to get a video done about this new documentation, this that we're looking at right here on the screen, and especially these 3 videos on Andy's 6-inch race build. It's cold. We've got things going on. I've got some medical procedures to go through. I fell in Disney World and kind of banged up my leg. And while they were doing an ultrasound on it to make sure there were no blood clots a week ago, they found a lesion in the upper thigh. I had to go last Thursday and have an MRI on that. It turns out it's a fatty lesion, which for normal people wouldn't be much of a problem, but seeing I've had cancer twice, they want to biopsy it. It's halfway between the skin and the bone, so it's pretty deep in there. I go tomorrow to talk to the surgeon about biopsying it. Don't know at this point if they're going to put me under general anesthesia to get the biopsy needle into the lesion. If it's not cancerous, that'll be the end of it. If it is cancerous, they're going to cut my leg open and take that lesion out. I'm going back to Disney World in about 29 days, so I'm going to have to figure out how all of this fits into my schedule. I hate that there could be a cancerous lesion in my leg, kind of relating to prostate cancer. Prostate cancer migrates. It frequently goes to men's hips, leg area. Don't know if that's what's going on. We're going to find out starting tomorrow. So there's a lot of things going on right now. Recovering from pneumonia. I've still got a couple of weeks before I go back to the doctor to completely be cleared of the pneumonia, because they can't take another x-ray for quite a period of time. Even though the pneumonia may be gone, it still fogs the x-ray, something like that. So it's cold here right now. We've had snow the past couple of days, especially in the higher elevations. I don't want to go back outside and get pneumonia again real quick, so I'm to the point where I'm ready to tune these platforms with flights, but I can't promise you how soon those flights will be. But I did want to get this information in front of your eyes for these 3 videos and this document, so you can use them yourself and get some better tunes and understanding of ArduCopter. Again, I now think ArduCopter is hard to learn for the first time. After 2 or 3 builds, ArduCopter's easy. All the rest of ArduCopter is really easy. Actually, the tuning flights are pretty easy. It's this notch filter, understanding notch filters, that's hard. So, while I'm waiting on good weather, we've had so much rain. We got 4 inches of rain yesterday, so my flying fields would be so muddy I would lose use of them if I went into them and tore up the ground right now. So even with good weather for a few days, I'm going to have to wait till those fields dry up before I can go out and do these tuning flights. So I have no earthly idea how soon they will be. I'm going to back off and get the T1 VTOL back ready to do its tuning flights. Didn't get the information promised by 2 people whose videos I watch on really getting those tunes down on that, so I'm just going to back off and do a normal ArduCopter tune on that airplane, vertical flight wise, with LiPo batteries this time instead of burning up a lithium ion battery trying to get too much done. That was a really bonehead move. I hate I lost that battery. I'm going to use LiPos. I'm going to get an ArduCopter tune on it, and then I'm going to do an Ardu plane tune on it, and then I think the T1 VTOL is pretty much in its final tunes and ready to be flown, and I think it'll be much better than its original flight controller. Other than that, we'll be looking back at the antenna tracker after all of that. That's something I can still do here in the basement without going out in the cold. So again, major point of this video is this document that only came out in December of 2023 from this developer right here. I hate butchering people's names, so I'm not even going to try. Hope this video helps you. I hope this documentation helps you. I hope Andy's videos. I watch Andy constantly, a great source for help. These 3 videos are just better than any he's ever done on notch filtering and tuning. I think he's getting better as each time he does it. Both of these guys seem to have an understanding, because they're developers, of things that they sometimes don't say. I will tell you, some of these videos, he's saying things that I think he's using information he knows about the code, but he's not revealing it completely. Not that he's hiding it from us. It's just you can't sit there and talk for a half hour in the middle of a tune video about coding. So these guys have a deep knowledge of this code that they share more and more tidbits every time they speak, and I really do think they are to be utilized in your building of ArduCopter. Alright, I'll put a link to this document in the description, and I hope you guys find it useful. Keep flying, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.